Antietam represents to me what so many pieces of ground represent to me. I'm very involved with the Civil War Trust in preserving ground, and if we lose the ground, it's gone. There's no getting it back. And one of the things I mentioned, I wrote a nonfiction book on the Civil War battlefields. And one of the things I mentioned in the introduction to that book is very much like a zoo is not the jungle, so a museum is not the battlefield. And this ground is, it is hallowed ground. It is holy land. My father used to talk about going around Europe and Asia, and every time you turn around, you bump into Holy Land. And that's sort of a quaint notion in this country. This is our Holy Land. I mean, this is what we have to preserve. And beyond the history of it, I am not a historian. It's not about facts and figures, names, dates, and places. That's certainly a part of it that needs to be taught, especially to young people. But for me, it's the individuals. And when you're talking about 3,600 dead here and 23,000 casualties, what that represents to me is 23,000 individual stories. And that's my job, is to try to find some of those stories, give voices to these people so they are not forgotten. And to that end, what Mike is doing with the documentary about the Illumination and what needs to be done, I think, more in this country is to teach people, whether it's people my age or school kids, why this is important, why it has to be remembered. And to that end, I am pledging to do a matching grant up to $5,000 for anyone who does make a donation to the Kickstarter program to see this documentary happen, to see it come to fruition. And without these kinds of projects, this kind of land, this place here, might very well go away, either from a lack of interest or increase in development, whatever it might be. And that is a terrible thing to contemplate. And my efforts for the rest of my life go not only to telling the stories and to getting it right and teaching future generations what happened here, but to preserve this ground and to educate people so that they will come here, that they will bring, much like Mike talked about as a 5-year-old. I was 12 the first time I went to a battlefield, and I did what boys do. I climbed all over cannons. Those 12-year-olds, that's our future. That means everything to this culture, to this country, and we can't let that get away from us. And by immortalizing this, that's how we keep those kids coming. And that's why I'm supporting this with as much energy as I can.
Thank you. It means so much. Minerva, come here a minute. Now, just tell us about your organization and just a little bit about how this started.
25 years ago, Georgine, Charles, and I both worked downtown Hagerstown. And we were both members of the American Businesswomen's Association. And she called me and told me that she went to Charlie Brown's cemetery and saw this candle thing, and we were going to do it at the battlefield. I said, "Oh, Georgine." She said, "Yes, we can do it. You know a lot of people. You came from down that way." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I grew up in Fairplay, but what's that make me with Sharpsburg?" She said, "You got to help." So from there, we started. And we had meeting, Charlie can tell you, every month we had a meeting. And finally, over the years, meetings have come or gone from 12 to about 4 a year, maybe even 3. But I've learned one thing that Georgine Charles has, and that is drive. You don't say, "No, maybe I won't do that, Georgine." You do it, and you say, "Thank you for asking me," because you always learn something. So over the years, it's been great. And I just grew up right up the road at Fairplay, and this is coming home. And I've been coming home 25 years to help with the Luminary.
That's pretty much the story. The thing that we've got to do with the Kickstarter, and it's a pretty new thing. My son's the one that actually turned me on to it. The campaign finishes on May 24th at 11:11 a.m. We were kind of intertwined around all the stuff that was going on in Boston because we were prepared to launch this thing. You have to submit to Kickstarter. And we had submitted it. And the Sunday before the Monday that the Boston Marathon was going on, we got the notification back that Kickstarter had approved the campaign. So I called Rick and Georgine and some other folks and said, okay, let's launch this thing on Tuesday. We'll kind of get the word out to people so they know it's coming. And Monday afternoon, Monday evening, I start to hear the news. And we saw the video clip. And I started calling folks, and I just, there's no way we can launch this thing tomorrow. Because our video clip started out with the words that said, for one day the fields around Sharpsburg were hell on earth. And the first thing you see is a cannon going off and reenactment footage that lasts about 5 seconds. Well, I was just kind of ill that night. I mean, I was sick for the people in Boston and what was going on there. You know, we'd put a lot of effort into this, and it was just, you know, I said, we just can't do it. And everybody agreed. So we held off. And part of my thought process in that first couple of days and seeing that video clip was the link back to here. And Antietam is the beginning of photojournalism. What Alexander Gardner did in this space where we're standing was really the beginning of what you're doing now with your video cameras and your cameras. And when I saw the clip, it kind of made me think of that. And that 15 seconds with this 2 bomb blasts and people screaming and yelling and the mayhem that was going on brought me back to the first 15 seconds in the cornfield that morning. And the thing is, it went on for 12 hours. And as horrible as that was in Boston, and it was horrible, and I don't want to I don't want to lessen that at all. But what happened here was that same thing all day from sunrise to sunset, and it didn't stop. You know, John Howard, we did an interview with him a couple of years ago as we started this project, and he said they did the math, and it's 1 casualty every second for 12 hours. And the illumination is how we come closest, I believe, to experiencing that. You know, and to me, it's kind of a surreal thing as you drive through and do that. So anyway, we got our Kickstarter launched, and the day we added a little preamble to it, basically for the victims in Boston, and we launched it. So we're in the midst of it. You know, we encourage people to you know, become part of it. Jeff's gone a long way to helping us with that, and we really appreciate that. And with that, I want to bring Jenny Avila out here. Todd, come here a second too. Crossed paths with Jenny about a year ago, and she has a CD out that she researched, and she did a lot of work with Doug about stories of the Civil War, and she did an amazing amount of research on this thing. And she's one of my new buddies. She's one of the new finds. And so we're going to use her Illumination song as part of the documentary. And we're going to record part of what we're looking for money for is to help record music and do other bits that we need to do. And so I'd like Jenny to say a word, and if you want to play a little bit, you can do that. Todd's got a recording studio that I didn't know existed, Tom didn't know existed, that's within the boundary of the park. And that's where Jenny recorded. So that's where we intend to do any of the audio that we're going to do. And if you walk out the door and you walk up the hill, you know, you're where Clara Barton was helping people. So I'll let Jenny kind of close things up.
Yeah, I had the same experience everybody's talking about of being absolutely stunned by the luminary. And it took me a couple of years to figure out how to capture that in music. It's actually going to end up being around with my group Hot Soup and with the choir, the Ebenezer Choir that ends up singing here every year. So 23,000 flames, wounded, lost or killed, on one dark red day, until the cannon and the sword lay still. 23,000 flames flicker on Antietam's hills. Who recall their names? Only the wind in the wheat fields will. So you can imagine that with the choir and going round and round. It's a beautiful sight, it's a poignant sight to see all those flames, and it's an honor to be here.